So we're locked in right now with the mainstream liberal media going full-blown damage control mode. They don't really have a choice anymore. The Somali fraud in Minnesota is too big to ignore, especially after independent journalist Nick Shirley went viral. His footage shows him visiting multiple daycares and healthcare centers that took millions in taxpayer money. Yet when you look at the operations on the ground, serious questions start to pop up about legitimacy and whether real services are actually being rendered, especially when you understand the scale of the fraud that has already been exposed, up to $9 billion of stolen taxpayer money perhaps. But instead of addressing those questions, the media does what it always does when it does not fit their agenda. They attack the messenger, smear him, discredit him, besmirch his name, because that's easier than actually providing the American people with the truth. As always, guys, make sure you hit that thumbs up. Let me know you enjoy the videos. Subscribe for more content and share this video. That way more people see what's really going on. And so let's start here where it says, right on cue, CNN just did exactly what Nick Shirley said they would do. The host starts off his description of Nick as someone who has shared anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim videos in the past. They go from completely ignoring to insulting the American who exposed it. Take a listen.
Right now, Republican lawmakers are asking Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz to resign after renewed focus on a state fraud investigation. A viral YouTube video by a creator who has shared anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim videos in the past put a major national spotlight on the investigation. The video claims Somali-run child care centers in Minnesota are committing widespread fraud and provides limited evidence to support the allegations. It was a video that was amplified by Vice President J.D. Vance, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and Elon Musk. Now, the FBI and DHS say they are surging resources into Minnesota, including at those child care centers. CNN's Whitney Wild is in Minneapolis. And Whitney, what are you hearing from officials there?
Well, there's one agency saying basically today that they are concerned about some of the tactics that the video shows, but at the same time, they take all allegations of fraud seriously. This has been a problem in Minnesota for many, many years. You can look it up yourself. There are stories about, alleged fraud at daycares stretching as far back as 2015. There were a round of indictments back then. Fraud continues to simply plague the Minneapolis area and Minnesota at large. There have been, in recent years, Phil, dozens of indictments, at least 80 for various types of fraud, COVID relief fraud, other types of housing fraud. And federal officials basically call this like an ongoing fraud investigation. If you look, the latest press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Minnesota says 6 more indictments in this ongoing fraud investigation. So this has been going on for quite some time. Local news has been all over this, producing award-winning series on fraud issues in Minnesota. But even still, it wasn't until, as you point out, that video that this fraud issue in Minnesota really exploded. I mean, that video for Nick Shirley has more than 115 million views. It has now caught the attention of very powerful voices in America.
So there you guys have that. And so now the mainstream liberal media wants us to believe that they've been on top of this the entire time, that this has always been an ongoing investigation with layers. And look, I don't doubt there are layers to this fraud. That's not what's being questioned. No one is arguing whether federal law enforcement is charging people, issuing indictments, or making arrests. That's not the issue. We've been reporting and speaking about that for some time now, even on this channel. The real question is this: why has the liberal media largely ignored this story until they were forced to acknowledge it? Instead, they spent their time pushing nonstop coverage of Donald Trump, because talking honestly about migrant communities committing fraud at a large scale, that doesn't really play good as far as fitting their narrative. But they do have time to give people like Ilhan Omar a platform to speak on, not to answer real tough questions about what's going on in her district, but to attack the president and anyone who dares brings this issue up. But right away, the moment Nick Shirley's reporting goes viral, they immediately try to discredit him. And suddenly, as you heard in the very beginning of the video, the host describes him as anti-immigrant or anti-Muslim videos. But what does that actually really mean? Does it mean he's asking questions the media refuses to ask? Because if that's the standard now, then apparently accountability itself is considered anti-something. But it doesn't stop there. Let's now go to this clip where CNN's Abby Phillip is trying to pile on Nick Shirley, attacking him as not doing real journalism. Take a listen.
This is politics. But, honestly, you knock on the door of a daycare center and you're like, let me in, let me in. What do you expect people to do? In some of those cases, there were children in there. What do you want people to do in that situation? Open the door and say, come on in, when they know that the Somali community is under attack, is being threatened every single day? What is going on here?
Look, if there's fraud there or anywhere else as it relates to Medicaid, it should be rooted out, and whoever has perpetrated it should be prosecuted, no question. But, in the homeless shelters I run, we have daycare centers. If someone just showed up at the door banging to say, I want to, bring a child there, we would not let them in. We don't let people who are unauthorized come in to daycare centers. But a big part of this that we also have to note is there was no need for the president to say the horrible things he said about the Somali community.
I mean, wow. This is just the same playbook by the mainstream liberal media. The moment they get uncomfortable, they want to get back into that comfort zone and let's talk about Trump. Somehow they want to bring him into it. Something they talk about all the time, because deflection is easier than accountability. Meanwhile, what we're actually dealing with here is one of the largest taxpayer fraud scandals in American history. And it's happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But let's be honest, this is bigger than Minneapolis. Now we're learning about fraud in California and other states. So this is ultimately just the beginning when it comes to widespread fraud being exposed. But instead of serious coverage, we get media personalities whining and complaining because the DOJ and the FBI are finally putting real resources behind recovering stolen taxpayer dollars. Apparently, enforcing the law and protecting public funds is now something to be upset about. I don't know about you, but holding people accountable for fraud sounds exactly like what the government is supposed to be doing. And so let's get into this next clip where Scott Jennings is calling out some of the things that Tim Walz has said since this fraud has become more public, and Abby Phillips makes it a point to defend Tim Walz. Take a listen.
Don't do it.
I'm simply pointing out it's Democrats.
That's not okay.
It's Democrats who have put Somali diaspora in Minneapolis at the center of their party and their state's politics. It's a small portion of the population. There is a bunch of fraud that goes on. And even Tim Walz has claimed that any investigation of this fraud is akin to white supremacy.
No,
which is
he hasn't.
No,
he
he
has
never
not
said
claimed
that.
that.
He
has not said that.
He has said that.
He has not said that. First of all, Tim Walz has encouraged investigations into this.
Yeah, and so there you guys have that. And what else is Tim Walz going to do? I mean, really, think about it. What else is he going to do as far as a response now that the fraud has become so glaring? There's no door B. There's no door A, door B, door C. There's only one option he has, and that is to get out in front of this and at least to the public make it look like he's been oblivious to this fraud going on the entire time, and now he wants to be tough on it. I mean, give me a break. Listen to what the media wants you to believe. They want you to believe that Tim Walz knew nothing about it, and now that he knows about it, he's on top of the entire thing, and he wants to get to the bottom of it to learn the truth. I got these magic beans, and I got this oceanfront property in the desert you gotta see. If you believe that, you believe anything. No. What's happened is he has no options. This is my opinion. He has no option. There's only one choice. Get out in front of this. And if he does know anything, or he did know anything, because there are whistleblowers out there saying that they have been calling this out and they've been ignored heavily, even by his administration. And so if that's the case, of course you're going to say, now let's investigate this. Let's make sure we make it look like we're really trying to get to the bottom of this. That's what a person who's trying to make themselves look innocent would do, right? They would make it sound and look like they were trying to help out the entire time. Like, whatever you need from me, officer, I'm going to help. And I'm here if you need me, officer. I mean, hiding in plain sight. Isn't that what they call it? You hide in plain sight when you don't want to be caught, or you don't want the spotlight to really be on you, or you want to make it try to seem like you didn't really do anything wrong, or you didn't know anything. You put it in plain sight and say, well, I'm not really trying to hide anything. In actuality, you're really scrubbing all the files and burning all the evidence in the back room before anybody actually gets there. You're just really trying to delay as much as possible. Not saying that's what Tim Walz is doing, but because we don't have the evidence on that right now, but allegedly, we'll have to wait and see. I find it hard to believe that this fraud has been going on for years now, and you, as the governor, had no clue. You either a terrible governor who's incompetent and shouldn't be governor anyway, or you are complicit in knowing and you try to cover it up as long as you could, and now you're getting caught.
Facts do matter in this, too. This is absolutely an attack on the Somali community and on immigrants writ large, right, to further say negative things. And the vast majority of the Somali residents of Minnesota are citizens. They're not new immigrants. So this is just a further example of the Trump White House doing everything they can to vilify immigrants.
So
a majority, hold on.
I would prefer they don't. I would prefer the president not call American citizens garbage.
A majority are native-born Americans.
Yes.
To your point. So, look, I mean, everyone should want accountability here, and there has not been enough, probably. But I also think that there's not honesty happening here. You want to get rid of Tim Walz? That's totally above board, right? Like, this is politics. You can run a campaign against someone, but why make Somali people the center of the argument as opposed to what went wrong here? What actually went wrong here?
I don't think we should paint with broad brushes, but the reality is this fraud was rampant within the Somali community. We cannot disassociate what's been happening.
Wait, but hold on. No. But what do you think should happen as a result of that?
What do you mean?
You're saying the fraud.
Stop admitting that it was Somalis.
You're saying that the fraud was rampant in the Somali community.
But it does.
Okay.
If it was white collar criminals, it would matter.
But hold on.
There's rich people in the Epstein files, you'll call them rich elites.
So then what? So then what? What's the policy consequence of the fact that some of the people who were involved here were Somali? What do you want to happen? Are you with Lauren Boebert? Denaturalize, mass deport?
No.
Because they're Somali?
But you need to go into the community. You need to investigate fully. It probably is the tip of the iceberg, as the FBI director Kash Patel said recently. We're uncovering and unraveling this every day. We're finding out more.
You need to go into the criminal enterprise.
Yeah, so that right there is a major reason why CNN has lost so much credibility. When you can't even acknowledge, when you can't just acknowledge the facts, that's a problem. It's not some, as Abby Phillips wants you to believe. It's most. That's a fact. Most of the arrests, most of the indictments, most of the charges, most of the fraud has come from the Somali community. It's not 50-50. It's not 70-30. It's 95%, 90 to 95%. The reality is this level of fraud was only able to exist because people who hold a position of power higher up, not ground level foot soldiers, pawns on the board. No, people higher up allowed it to. And so Scott Jennings makes a great point about this entire scandal. Take a listen.
According to Pam Bondi, 98 individuals have been charged, 85 of them from Somali descent, 60 have been found guilty in court. A lot of that happened in the previous administration, but some of it happened this year. So again, this idea that nothing is being done, that no one is being held accountable, that this was just let to run rampant is completely false.
Well, some people have been held accountable, but I think in the opinion of most Republicans, not nearly enough. And truthfully, until somebody in a position of power, until somebody in a position in Minnesota, elected position, who was in charge of administering this or having some oversight over it goes to jail, it's honestly never going to stop. Look what's going on in blue states across the country. $9 billion in Minnesota, $70 billion in fraud in California, cooking the crime stats in Washington, D.C. When is someone in a position of power going to go to jail for the rampant fraud?
Hold on a second.
You can put all the low-level people in jail you want, but until somebody in charge goes to jail, it won't stop.
Somebody needs to go to prison for a long time. I mean, really. And I'm saying that because unless just like Scott Jennings just said, unless officials who actually allow this to happen are actually held accountable, this will continue to happen. And that's completely unacceptable. I mean, you can't be mad or blame anyone who says, well, why am I even paying taxes, right? How do you expect people to trust the system when they know their tax dollars are being abused like this? And the people in charge, they knew what was happening, right? This wasn't ignorance. This wasn't a one-off. You heard from the very beginning of this video, this has been going on for years now. Red flags were there for years. And essentially they shrugged it off and moved on. And they made arrests here and there, prosecuted a few individuals. But the fraud continued as a system, which means they did the bare minimum, just enough to say they're doing something, instead of actually fixing the problem. And now that the federal government is involved, now all of a sudden it's, oh, we're on top of it. If you see the same pattern repeating over and over and over again, common sense tells you this isn't isolated. This is systematic. And at some point, the responsible move would be to shut the whole thing down until you clean up the system. That's what accountability looks like. And that is exactly what was missing from the supposed leader of the state of Minnesota, Tim Walz. But what say you? Drop your comments down below. As always, smash that thumbs up. Let me know that you love the video. Subscribe for more and share this video. That way more people see what's really going on. And as always, until next time.